Today we're going to talk about a concept that you've probably heard of, which is gaslighting. We're going to explore what gaslighting is, how to recognize it, and then how to empower yourself if you find yourself in a situation where you're being gaslit. Hey, it's Lori Sulpizio. Don't forget to subscribe if you find the information helpful. Give the video a like. I try to bring up topics that are relevant, maybe even a little controversial and edgy, so we can have honest dialogue about the things that matter, about real issues, and figure out how to live as our authentic selves. So gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where one person tries to make somebody doubt their own reality, doubt their memory, question their perceptions, or even question their sanity. The term gaslighting comes from a play back in 1938 called Angel Street, which was later turned into an Alfred Hitchcock movie titled Gaslight in 1944, where a husband manipulates his wife to make her think she's going insane so he can commit her to a mental institution and steal her inheritance. The name comes from him slowly dimming the lights in their homes, but telling her that nothing's changing, so she ends up doubting her own perceptions and doubting her reality. Gaslighting is emotional abuse. The important thing for you to understand is that gaslighting is intentional. Gaslighting occurs in the context of a relationship with another person, in conversation with someone. So you might hear some of the examples and think, oh, my roommate does this, my brother does this, shoot, I do this. And this is a really important point because we do ask people questions and engage in conversations about our perceptions and about our beliefs, and we're not always in alignment. But when it's gaslighting, it's intentionally designed to make you doubt yourself. It is a form of manipulation. But this is where it gets tricky because it's intentional, but not always conscious. So sometimes people are gaslighting when they really don't know they're gaslighting. And it's true that people can engage in gaslighting behaviors without the intent to manipulate or control you. So the relational skill around this is getting really honest about the type of relationship you have with a particular person and being able to have open conversations about behaviors that seem to be gaslighting. Unintentional gaslighting is still gaslighting by definition. Even in our best relationships, we sometimes undermine each other's feelings, experiences, or even each other's sense of selves. But in those healthy relationships, we're able to address those issues, acknowledge them, and even apologize when we hurt somebody in that way. In healthy relationships, gaslighting behaviors aren't consistent and repetitive. So what does it feel like when you're being gaslit? Well, you might begin to mistrust what you're feeling or feel like your thinking doesn't have any validity. You might feel like you're always in the wrong. You'll likely have negative kinds of feelings that include doubt, confusion, being misunderstood, lack of self-worth, or feel your confidence and self-esteem erode. You might begin to second-guess yourself and your experiences, feel constantly confused about what the truth is. And when you're being gaslit, you're made to feel wrong, you're made to feel bad, you're made to feel like your experience is not the truth. So consider this situation. You might share a feeling or a thought with someone, like being frustrated or you're upset by something, and then have that situation flipped on you to where you're blamed for that feeling or that thought. Have you ever been in a conversation where you're sharing your own feeling of frustration or confusion, and then all of a sudden you find yourself thinking, wait a minute, this is my fault now? The situation suddenly gets flipped and you're to blame. Here's another example. You might say to somebody, I'm really thirsty. I want to get a drink of water. And somebody says, oh, you're not that thirsty. We don't need water right now. We just took a break. We just had some water. And then you start to wonder, oh, am I really thirsty? Maybe I don't need water. Maybe I don't need a break. Maybe I do need to push through. Or you share you're hungry and someone says, there's no way you can be hungry. You just ate. The sad thing is that while these might feel like silly examples, these kinds of things happen in relationships when somebody wants to control you, when they want to control what you do, they want to control what you think. So they're going to convince you that you're not hungry if they're not hungry. And it's not only controlling your actions, like telling you, don't get a drink of water right now, or don't go get a meal, but it's manipulating your reality. One of the most dangerous instances of gaslighting is when people are told that they're lying. This happens all the time in relationships where there's an imbalance of power. So often a boss with a direct report, a parent with a child, an older sibling with a younger sibling. And this happens when somebody is so convinced of a truth and so unwilling to listen to your version of the story or what you're stating is your truth that even without evidence, they work to convince you that you're lying. And it's more than just saying, I don't believe you, because we're entitled to not believe somebody. But when we act as if we know the truth, even when we don't have any evidence and we're not sure, that's gaslighting. So saying things like, that just didn't happen, that's absolutely not true, you're a liar, I know you did this, and no matter what you try to say, you're told you're wrong. This is called reality manipulation, and it happens when somebody continues to negate your reality and your truth and attempt to make you wrong for what you know is true and what you believe. There's a statistic in Scientific American that found that 30% of the people surveyed about gaslighting reported that their parents were the primary gaslighters. Specifically when it came to the feeling of mental health, saying things like, you're not depressed, you're just having a bad day, or things can't be that bad at school, or you're overreacting and being too sensitive. When this happens with people, and especially kids, mental health isn't taken seriously. And then the kids start to believe that their symptoms aren't real. Maybe I am just being whiny. Maybe I am overreacting. You can imagine how dangerous this would be. So these are the most common gaslighting tactics: reality manipulation, coercion, lying, scapegoating, and shifting blame. So with reality manipulation, it's making you question what you know is true. And this could be specific things that actually occurred, or things like your thoughts and your feelings. It's important to know that our thoughts and feelings are absolutely true. There are certainly times when we might need to work on our thoughts or our feelings because maybe we have negative thoughts or we have narratives that don't truly tell an accurate story, or maybe we get emotionally hooked by something. But a healthy engagement with another human will allow us to have a conversation about differing thoughts or differing feelings so we can come to shared understanding. Coercion. This is persuading you to do something with threats, whether it's physical, emotional, or verbal. This could look like isolating you from your family or your friends, claiming that they just want exclusive time with you because they love you so much. But what's really happening is you're being held hostage from your extended community. Controlling finances or tracking your time or your whereabouts every moment is a way to keep you under someone's control. Coercive control is actually a crime. It's a relatively new crime in the category of assault without injury, but it's serious and dangerous. Straight up lying. The gaslighter will outright lie because that allows them to hide the truth and then shift the blame and shift the focus away from themselves onto you. And then we've got scapegoating and shifting blame, deflecting attention and responsibility away from themselves and making you to blame for whatever the situation is. So if your partner has been treating you poorly, it's probably because of something that you did to stress them out. If your friend isn't wanting to hang out with you, it could be because you're the one that's not available for her the way that she needs you. So everything becomes somebody else's fault, and you become responsible for your own frustration and struggles. So if you think you're being gaslit by someone, what can you do? The first thing is to get educated around the kind of manipulative behaviors that define gaslighting so that you can recognize the difference between somebody truly being uncertain of what happened and trying to have a conversation with you about that, and somebody trying to make you doubt your own reality. So notice the difference in these two situations. You're scheduled to meet somebody and they're late. So a lie would be to make up an excuse that isn't true because they just don't want to admit to being late and they feel badly about it. So they might say, oh, traffic was really bad, or my dog had an accident in the house and I had to clean it up and it took a long time. And they would just make something up that is relatively benign, but still not true when it's creating an excuse for being late. Gaslighting, on the other hand, would be something like this. You were supposed to put the meeting on my calendar and you never did. Or I swore you said we were meeting at 10 a.m. and not 9. Gosh, you're always seeming to mess things up. And now all of a sudden, their being late isn't their fault, but it's yours. Can you see the difference? One is somewhat innocent and just a lack of personal accountability, and the other one is manipulation. Once you start to recognize the action and patterns of gaslighting, the next step is to get honest with yourself about how you're feeling and acting when you're engaging with a particular person. So if you feel constant self-doubt, if you're made to feel like you're always wrong, if you're made to feel like your thoughts are untrue, if you find yourself feeling anxious before you even engage with this person or just at the thought of engaging with this person, and you start to wonder if maybe you're the problem and the bad person, then chances are it's gaslighting and you need to do something about it. Here's the thing. We can't change someone's behavior, but we can change how we orient to someone's behavior from an internal perspective and point of view, and we can control or take agency over how we respond and how we react to what somebody is saying. So if you know what you're feeling is true, if you know what you're thinking is true, it doesn't matter what anyone else says. It's true for you. A healthy relationship will allow you to have a conversation around your truth and their truth, which might be slightly different in experience and in feelings, but you'll be able to converse about that with respect and with equality. I hate to tell you that you may never be able to stop the gaslighter from saying what they say, but what you can do is know that it's not true. And if this is a dynamic in a relationship that you're in, then you need to create space from that relationship so you are not stuck inside it, left with only your negative feelings. It is too much to ask of yourself to have the emotional and psychological resistance to endure gaslighting, no matter how great of a relationship you think it is. So telling yourself, oh, it's not that bad, I can handle it. No, you cannot. It's not healthy, and unless you make a shift, it won't change. I want to acknowledge how difficult this is and how impossible it feels when it's a power over relationship. So when it's a boss that's doing this to you, or if it's your parent, this is really, really difficult. But I want you to know that other people's bad behavior is not your fault. You don't deserve it and you don't cause it. People's behavior lies with them. But you sticking around when people continue their bad behavior towards you is your fault. You not being clear about your boundaries around how you want to be treated is your fault. You returning again and again to somebody who continues to treat you badly because they have bad behavior is your fault. And I just want to let that sink in, and I want to say it again. You do not deserve, nor are you responsible for people's bad behavior. But you are responsible for the fact that you continue to stay in relationship with or continue to engage with people whose bad behavior comes in the form of treating you poorly. Again, I know it's complicated when we talk about levels of authority, when we talk about power, and that is a tough one. Esther Perel said it really bluntly when she said, for any gaslighter, there has to be somebody willing to be gaslit. The two go together. So we want to be careful about labeling every kind of conflict or misunderstanding or conversation where people are disagreeing about the truth and about what happens as gaslighting, because it's not always that. And recently, with gaslighting being the buzzword that it is, we immediately go to say, you're gaslighting me, I'm being gaslit. So the responsible thing to do is to understand the difference and then react accordingly. It's true, there could be forms of gaslighting within a relatively neutral conversation, a healthy relationship, and we can certainly learn to identify that so we can call that out and strengthen our relationships. But the reality is, we're gonna have misunderstandings and we're gonna disagree on the way things occur. So the opportunity here, it's for us to develop skills around being open and honest with each other, about being able to listen deeply to each other's experience, to be able to share our own experience and engage in those conversations where the goal is mutual understanding and respect. The final caveat I want to offer is that I know there are many people who struggle with a lack of confidence or lack of self-esteem or lack of self-worth. And this doesn't have anything to do with being gaslit. This just has to do with the crazy comparison world that we live in now with social media all over. It has to do with the messages we get from society about what our value is. It has to do with our own inner dialogue. So part of the personal development work is to recognize where you, as an individual, can do your own work around developing and deepening your confidence and owning your self-worth, and where you might be in a relationship that could be compromising that and hindering that growth. We don't want to gaslight ourselves, if that's even a thing, and convince ourselves that everything in our life is everybody else's fault. The steps to authenticity is really about personal ownership and getting honest with ourselves. Thank you so much for being here. I know your time is valuable. Be patient with yourself along this journey. Know that if you're being gaslit, it is not your fault. You don't deserve it. Find the support you need to get out of the unhealthy relationships you might be in and nurture the healthy ones in your life. I've got resources in the description. You can connect with me on social media if you need extra support, and I'll see you in the next video.